Memorial Hospital in the 80s and 90s, and today the fight goes on for justice as relatives tell BBC Radio 7 the government is ignoring them. Now, back in the summer, the Health Secretary pledged to meet family members, but that hasn't happened. So tomorrow they're heading to Downing Street to protest against what they see as silence and inaction. Joining me now, Bridget Reeves. Her grandmother Elsie died at Gosport War Memorial Hospital in 1999. Bridget, good morning.
Good morning, Julian.
Thanks for being there this morning. I know we've spoken before. In a way, I wish I was welcoming you back with some resolution on this, but do you feel you're getting nowhere fast?
Yeah, unfortunately, the panel's report has literally been dumped on us with the thousands of documents in the archives, with families having no way to navigate or seek remedy in the paper trail that they've left behind them. The police have started an assessment period which can take up to another year. However, the CPS have already written to us and confirmed that they've reviewed the panel's report and find no further evidence to which they've not already seen. And therefore...
What do you make of that?
Well, why are we assessing the same previous information that we know by Hampshire Constabulary's own admission was completely defunct? Why are Eastern Region, Nick Downing, wasting up to another year before commencing their criminal investigation? I mean, as it is, the families have been told that that's only one of the four outcomes. Potentially, there'll be no further action. And we can clearly read in the report that we're looking here at charges of murder, manslaughter, corporate manslaughter. The families really, this should have been a public inquiry, not a closed-door inquiry, and we can't understand why the bishop didn't convert it to so when he realised the travesties and the atrocities that actually had happened at Gosport.
And Elsie, just in case people weren't aware, went into Gosport for respite, basically, didn't she?
She did. She was like, really, the 456 that have been identified and the potential to, and now another 3, 100 more families have come forward since the report was laid out. And, she went there for respite. She was recovered from a UTI at the QA and 4 weeks into her stay. That's when the regime started, the regime that killed all these other patients along with my grandmother, and we need to see justice.
Do you want criminal charges to be brought against people involved?
Yes, absolutely. We listened to Matt Hancock's address yesterday or the day before, which none of the families were informed of, which came as a complete shock because that was actually the anniversary of my grandmother's death. And he stated that we're bringing on a new body to detect failings and ensure criminal investigations, but don't they have this already amongst all of the quangos that looked into all of our cases when the nurses reported these killings in 1989? What is a new body going to do if these families can't have justice, and that justice is that this has been criminal activity, and therefore why is it not in a criminal court?
And I was surprised, Bridget, that you and the other relatives didn't know this was happening on Wednesday. So did you have no idea that he was going to stand up and make that statement?
I had no idea. I was contacted by a journalist, and then literally within half an hour, I had so many different messages via social media advising me of it. I called some of the relatives who also had no idea, and neither did Norman Lamb. I mean, I spoke to Norman the next morning, and he advised that they were only informed a few hours beforehand. And I have to say, what was that all about? I know the government will be aware that we're protesting tomorrow outside of Downing Street. And yes, most likely, had I known, we would have moved out and been outside of Parliament, because we've been refused a meeting with Matt Hancock, and we were promised that we would have our voices heard for the first time in all these years. We've had 12 inquiries, none of them that have engaged with the families, none of them that have been Article 2 compliant, and that is the obligation of our government.
Why have you not been able to meet Matt Hancock briefly? What's the answer?
Well, my MP asked that question of Matt Hancock, and his response in government was that the bishop had advised it should be after the assessment period. And I have no idea why the Bishop would advise such a thing, given that the families have been absolutely crying out for a meeting with government since that report was laid out. And that is what I understand when they stood up on the 20th of June, that they promised us as families. In a year's time, it is reprehensible to make us wait another year to not just see justice, but to have a conversation.
Bridget, sadly, I feel we'll be talking again, but I wish you well if I can say that with a march on such a serious subject, but I hope it goes well and I hope you get some answers.
Thank you, Julian, and thank you, BBC Salem, for your continued support. Thank you.